Welcome to the online training session on the topic of integrated pest management. This is the fourth topic within Principle 3, Natural Resource Conservation of the Sustainable Agriculture Standard. In this session, you will understand the importance and techniques of integrated pest management and how to achieve a healthy and productive crop without being dependent on chemical applications. When you blindly apply pesticides to your crop, what will happen? Let us look at this example from a tea farm in India. One day, a farmer walked through his farm and noticed some red spider mites. He thought, I should immediately spray my tea before these mites spread all over my farm. However, what he did not notice was the presence of ladybugs on his farm. Ladybugs eat red spider mites and other pests on tea. As the mites began to populate the farm, the ladybugs began to eat them. The next day, the farmer came back with a pesticide. He sprayed his entire farm to wipe out the mites. His pesticide application killed some mites, but the strong, big mites that were hiding under the tea bushes managed to survive. Unbeknownst to him, spraying on the farm completely wiped out the population of ladybug beetles. In the absence of ladybugs, the survivor mites multiplied very quickly. After several days, the farmer noticed that there were even more mites than before he sprayed. He wondered what went wrong. Here is a quiz. It is a multiple choice question. Please choose all the correct answers. What do you think he should have done or should do now? A. Do nothing and let nature take care of his tea. B. Apply a stronger pesticide to wipe out the mites. C. Apply the same pesticide for the second time to wipe out the mites. D. Apply control methods to kill mites without killing the ladybugs. E. Apply practices to increase the population of ladybugs. F. Pay attention to the presence of ladybugs and monitor their population. G. Monitor the population of the mites. The answers are D, E, F, and G. All these practices can be considered as techniques of integrated pest management. They are all examples of different techniques to control pests without depending on chemical application. In this training session, you will learn about 7 techniques of IPM in detail. First, let us quickly see what those 7 techniques are. Monitoring of pests, monitoring of predators, biological control, physical control, cultural control, use of chemicals as the last resort, and use of only low toxicity chemicals. In the next slide, we will go through each of these in detail. The first important step of IPM is monitoring of pests. You should not spray just because you saw a few insects hopping in your farm. You need to observe the pests in your farm to have a clear idea of what is going on. For example, in the case of tea, you can walk through the rows of tea bushes and record the numbers of different pests you find. When you monitor the farm on a constant basis, you will be able to notice when a certain pest starts to increase in its number. You will also be able to identify which sections of the farm are affected by pests. In the case of coffee, you can monitor selected trees in different sections of the farm. Here is one method to monitor pests on those trees. First, you spray the tree with pyrethrum solution, which is an extract of a flower called African chrysanthemum. It paralyzes insects so that they cannot move anymore. After spraying, wait for 15 minutes and shake the tree hard to make the paralyzed pests drop onto the ground. Make sure that there is a sheet over the ground so that the fallen pests can be collected. Then count the number of different pests and record them. There are 5 criteria that address the issue of pest monitoring. The first one is Critical Criterion 3.3. It asks for an IPM plan that is based on monitoring and records. The second one is C3.23. It asks for a group administrator to develop an IPM plan for the group. The third one is C3.24. To comply with this criterion, a pest monitoring record needs to be available. The fourth criterion is B3.25. It asks that smallholders have become capable conducting pest monitoring and keep monitoring records. What should be included in the records? Criterion C 3.24 and B 3.25 specify the following items to be recorded: pest type, infestation date, duration of an infestation, area affected, degree of damage, weather and soil condition during the infestation. When you have the records, the next step is to analyze the records and update and improve your IPM plan based on the analysis. This is required in Criterion B 3.26. Another important thing to monitor is predators on your farm. When you monitor pests, you can also monitor predators. When the pest population increases, you may notice that the predator population is also increasing. If the predator population is increasing, it is likely that the increased number of predators will soon control the pests. Therefore, it is not a wise decision to spray immediately at that point and kill the predators. The third important technique is to conduct biological control of pests. Predators are very good examples of biological control. Praying mantis, ladybug beetles, spiders, wasps, dragonflies, these are all known predators. Predators are not necessarily insects. Birds are also very important predators that control pests such as caterpillars. Predators can even be fungus. Beauveria bassiana is a fungus that can kill pests such as termites, thrips, and aphids. In these photos, you can see pests killed by Beauveria bassiana. How can we have more predators on the farm so that they can conduct biological control of pests? In order to increase their population, you need to prepare their habitats. When you conserve the soil and have it covered by natural vegetation, it serves as a habitat for the predators. When you conserve water sources, they also become habitats for predators. When you plant native trees and create conservation areas, those areas become habitats for birds. Soil conservation, water conservation, and the conservation of native vegetation and trees all contribute to integrated pest management. Now, let us move on to the next IPM technique, which is physical control. Here in this picture, you see a coffee farmer using a wire to poke and kill larvae of yellow-headed borer. In this picture, a coffee farmer has covered the cocoa pods with plastic bags to protect them from Asian cocoa borers. In this picture, a banana farm has wrapped the trunk of the crop with masking tape to catch scarring beetles. This picture shows an adhesive colored sheet used to catch flies on cattle farms. These are different types of insect traps to catch coffee berry borers. The fifth IPM technique is cultural control. It refers to all good practices to make your crop strong and healthy so that it can resist pest attacks. For example, planting a disease-resistant variety, pruning, fertilization, removal of old or fallen fruits. All of these practices help the crop to stay healthy. IPM does not mean that you can never use chemicals and you have to go organic. Chemical application is allowed as the last resort only when the crop would be significantly damaged if you don't apply a chemical. An important concept here is economic threshold. When a pest infestation reaches an economic threshold, the crop is damaged to the extent that causes you economic loss. In such case, a chemical application can be justified. This is an example of economic threshold for coffee. When you conduct pest monitoring and notice that the pest infestation has reached this level, an action needs to be taken to protect your crop. When you conduct IPM, you are also very careful about selection of chemicals. You should be aware of the toxicity level of a product and only use low toxicity chemicals. As you see in this chart, there are different levels of toxicity of agrochemicals that are categorized by color. The red label chemicals are most toxic, and the green label chemicals are least toxic. Low toxicity chemicals are those that hold a blue label or a green label. When you see a bottle with a red label, this is an extremely toxic chemical that you should basically not be using. In some cases, it may even be a prohibited chemical. When a label's color is yellow, it is highly toxic chemical. Its use is also very restricted. When a label is blue, it is moderately toxic. This is a better option than red or yellow label chemicals. When a label color is green, its toxicity level is much less than the other options. When a green label product is available, this should be the most preferred option. Let's review the topic of IPM through quizzes. A coffee producer says, "After I finish my harvesting for export, I still go back to the farm to collect all the old cherries left on the trees because they can still be sold to the local market at a low price." Is this an IPM practice? The answer is yes. The old cherries left on the trees host all sorts of pests and diseases, which will affect the next harvest. Although the farmer is conducting this practice for an economic reason, what he is doing helps control pests and diseases. Removing old cherries is an IPM practice, and it's a cultural control. Here is another quiz. A cocoa producer says, "To promote IPM in my farm, I always remove the leaves that fall on the ground to keep the soil clean and free of leaf litter." Is this an IPM practice? The answer is no. Fallen leaves can serve as mulch and cover the soil to prevent weed growth and to conserve humidity in the soil. Keeping the soil covered is an important practice for soil conservation. When the soil is covered by mulch or by natural vegetation, it also serves as habitats for predators that conduct biological control of pests. Therefore, removing fallen leaves cannot be considered as an IPM practice. Let's look at this case. A coffee producer sprays his farm once every month with a low toxicity fungicide to prevent coffee rust outbreak. Is this an IPM practice? The answer is no. The farmer uses a low toxicity chemical but he sprays routinely every month without observing the level of pest infestation in his farm. Pest monitoring is the first important step, and a chemical application can only be justified when the pest infestation reaches the economic threshold. What about this case? During his regular pest monitoring, a coffee producer noticed that his sample tree has 8 Antiscia bugs. He picked Tephrosia leaves, created their extract, and sprayed his trees. Is this an IPM practice? The answer is yes. In this case, the farmer has been conducting regular monitoring of pests and observed that Antiscia bugs have gone beyond the economic threshold level. Based on this observation, he has decided to spray. He has chosen to spray with a natural extract, which is of low toxicity. His practice is very much in compliance with IPM. Before closing the session, let's go through one more quiz. A corn farmer told an agriculture shop vendor, "I want to practice IPM in my farm to reduce the use of pesticides." The vendor said to the farmer, "Then I have a great corn seed for you. This new variety contains an insecticide in its genes. When insects eat this corn, they die immediately, so you don't need to use insecticides." The farmer bought these seeds and planted them in his farm. Is this an IPM practice? The answer is no. The critical criterion 3.6 prohibits planting or mixing of genetically modified organisms. A genetically modified organism is an organism whose genes have been altered using genetic engineering techniques. When genes are altered, a crop can obtain characteristics that can never occur naturally. For example, a crop can contain an insecticide within or become resistant to certain herbicides. There are many unknown long-term effects of GMOs to human health and to the environment. GMO crops can never be certified, and products that have been made with GMO crop cannot carry a certified seal. By implementing IPM practices, let us reduce the use of pesticides and achieve healthy and productive crops.